What's up, YouTube? ODST General back again with another Operation Trebuchet update. I'm re-recording this video because I recorded it really late last night. I was pretty tired, made a lot of mistakes, and something actually changed. I was having internet problems. I actually posted on Twitter and YouTube, or not YouTube, but Facebook about it. And I got it resolved, so I decided to get rid of that video completely just because that was in there as well. So let's go ahead and delve into it. Now, bear in mind, watching this update video, some of this stuff is weeks old, maybe like a month plus old. I've been sitting on it for a while just because it actually takes me a lot longer to do this than a regular video, even though these are a lot of just screenshots and stuff, just because it takes longer to sync up the audio to the pictures and stuff like that. It's a lot more work than just a regular video for me. So let's go to the first picture here. Once again, we're going to start off with community stuff. The first thing is actually an Opcan update. So you can see we've got a bunch of vehicles here. I believe these are the CSAT vehicles, the CSAT equivalent of the Hemet. These are actually very cool vehicles. I've always wanted these to have the Halo skins instead. I actually thought these would be more appropriate for the UNSC than the Hemet. That's just my own personal opinion. Looking at the skins here, it's kind of hard to tell what some of these are. In the back, that it appears to be the UNSC logo in both a tropical and desert variation. The middle one, that's the one that gets me. We've got kind of a jungle one, tropical one as well, and then another desert one that's lighter. But I don't know what that logo is. It's doesn't look like UNSC from this distance out. It's kind of a triangle, but there's patterns in there. I can't really tell what it is. I do know that Opcan is looking to add planetary militia on top of the CMA forces already in, so that could potentially be what these are for. And then, speaking of the CMA, that's what the front row is. That's CMA units. So, pretty cool stuff. I'm actually pretty excited for the addition of those, just because they feel a little bit more Halo than the Hemet. Even though they're such similar design, they just feel a little bit more futuristic because they're designed to. The Hemet's actually a modern military vehicle. Moving on to the next picture is another Opcan edition. So these are the militia units I was talking about. These, I can't remember if it's AAF or CSAT, but this is the officer's uniform from Vanilla Arma 3. It's been retextured to, just look like an olive drab or something. And then they've got some camouflage pants. And these units are designed to look a little bit more ragtag since they are militia. You can see some of them have UNSC armor, others have webbing or nothing at all. In the vehicles in the background, we have, I can't remember what the name of that vehicle is. I'm really bad with the Arma vehicles names for like the vanilla game. It's like the equivalent of like the Striker for the AAF or NATO, I want to say. But that's pretty cool to see them get, Vehicle 2 actually going ahead of the Bison's release for 0.15. And it'll actually be nice to see like something different than the Bison that they're using that's similar. Going on next, we have a screenshot. Now this one's pretty basic. The only thing that I really want to feature with this, besides the fact that it's a pretty cool looking screenshot, this was actually made by Jedi Nick, is if you look at the individual in the suit, if you didn't recognize him immediately, that is Spartan June. He's one of the characters from Reach. He's actually the sniper from Reach, and the only surviving member of Noble Team. He's also the guy who was recruiting for the Spartan 4s. Now, this is not going to be part of Optray officially, but I would like to see this, if possible, released with like Opcan or something. Actually, I know one point in time, Optray actually had a character add-on, like a head for Sergeant Johnson, that they never actually did anything with. Because it wasn't actually Sergeant Johnson, it just was his name. It was supposed to end up looking like him eventually. They were going to, add like the mustache and make it look like Sarge. It just never happened. I wouldn't mind seeing that, like some additions to add like actual Halo characters as like head options or something. I think that would be pretty neat. But we're going to move on because that's, like I said, it's just a screenshot. Nothing too fancy about it. This next picture, this is, obviously, it's a very basic ODST helmet. This is actually based off the Halo 2 version, which personally actually like. in some ways a little bit more, partially because it was my first introduction to the ODSTs, but also just because my big problem with Halo nowadays is that all the armor keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Like, you look at Halo 1, they barely have any armor on. Halo 2, you know, they've got a lot more armor. It's a lot more conventional. Halo 3 was actually probably my favorite, even though it's a little bit thicker, but it actually looks like sci-fi armor. You know, it looks like something they might have 500 years in the future, you know, if they were still basing it off, like, pretty modern-day stuff. To be honest, it probably is even basic for 500 years in the future, but at least it looked sci-fi. Now, the ODST armor for Halo 3 is kind of the same, but I don't like how it just keeps getting bulkier, and the Halo 2 armor was very not bulky. And it's much more simplistic in design, except for, you know, Anniversary, of course, for Halo 2. But this is not being made by the dev team. This is being made by an individual. I unfortunately can't remember his name. I forgot to look at the post before I came on here on the Reddit, but you know, he was actually considering scrapping this. This is his first time attempting a project like this, and I mean, you can look at it and you can see, you know, flaws or things that need to be fixed. But with that being said, I would love to see this project completed. I would love to see even this version of the helmet, if like it got touched up in just a couple places around the visor, and got some, you know, decent, you know, texturing and stuff. I would think that would be fantastic seeing that added to the game. Probably as part of like First Contact or something, just because that's supposed to be like all-encompassing for Halo. Moving on, we've got a lot of stuff for the Bison. Now, the Bison I think is pretty much completed at this point. I think it's in game. I'm not positive. That's probably the part they're working on right now for it, is just doing like scripting and testing for it. So the first thing we have here is, of course, a little monitor. You'll see more of this in the other stuff, so nothing really to dwell on with it. A steering wheel, once again, nothing too fantastic or amazing. Here's where it starts to get a lot more details. We have an interior shot of the cockpit area, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the appropriate terminology is for an IFV or tank or something like that. But that's where the driver sits. You can see the, you know, the pedals and some of the control monitors and stuff like that. Now, bear in mind, while looking at this cockpit, you will not be able to see out of the vehicle. You won't be able to, like, turn out. You will see out of the vehicle using these monitors that you see in these screenshots. So you can see a top-down view, a little bit more controls in here. You know, the steering wheel, all this stuff. Now we've got a view from pretty close to the driver's perspective. It's a little above the driver's perspective, but you can see there's 3 small monitors, 1 big monitor, and then a side view cut out without the driver or anything from the back compartment. It's just basically all the controls, and that's it. That steering wheel looks really far forward, but I know that's because you're supposed to be kind of sitting in the middle of that. You know, here's an angle that really displays it a little bit better, because it actually shows like the 3D part of it, and it looks a lot better this way. So there's a fair amount of detail in the cockpit of this vehicle. There's a good bit less with the back, the rear area, the cabin, whatever you want to call it, where the infantry are transported from. But I think that looks a lot better with texturing. Going through, we've got, you know, another little control station on the left, even further left, with a bunch of switches and stuff. Now, bear in mind that these switches aren't going to do anything. These buttons, all this, it's not like Arma 3 Project Life or, you know, and some other Arma mods where, like, every little thing has a switch scripted into it. Most of these are just for, like, decoration. Actually, it's, like, all for decoration. Our next shot is a quick exterior shot, and I should have just moved this back further in the images because it's kind of out of place here, but we've got smoke canisters. So obviously the whole purpose of these is that when you've got infantry on the ground, you launch smoke and stuff. At least I think that's what these are for. It's either that or chafe, but I don't think it's chafe. It could be, though. I don't know. I'll be honest. I think it actually probably could very well be both. Here we've got an interior shot of, you know, the whole vehicle, basically. So you've got the crew cabin, you know, you got the command, like, not the command area, but whatever you want to call it, the control area. This guy's in the back is probably the turret gunner, because it's got to be separate than the driver, just because of how Arma works. And as you can tell, he's actually got a pretty detailed area too. We don't have as many shots of this. In fact, this is really the only good shot of his little area in the back here. You can see he's got 2 small screens on his monitor. I don't think that big one on top... Well, okay, yeah, maybe that is a regular screen like the driver has. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. Here we've got another shot from the side of the crew compartment. I keep saying crew compartment. They're not part of the crew. They're infantry being transported by the vehicle. We've got another one from the back. And then we've got exterior shots of the vehicle with all the rivets and stuff into it, you know. So it looks very, very detailed, just adding like that small stuff. Like I always say, it's the small details that really bring something out. You don't think about it until you see it, you know. But this looks so much more basic without those on there. It really does make a huge, huge, huge difference seeing it with and without these little rivets and bolts and stuff. You know, we got a side shot of that. So you can see there's a lot of details coming out of the vehicle. It really did come together well. Like I said, I was never initially a fan of this turret design. I really wanted it to stick with the Scorpion turret just for the fact that it brought it closer to canon, in my head at least, you know. But this turret does look really well with it. The whole vehicle in general has just come together really well. So the shot we're on now is a shot from the back of the vehicle. You can see the tires got a really wide base, but the vehicle is still quite tall. But, you know, it's reasonably tall. You know, these IFVs are pretty big, and Halo builds stuff with a lot of height. A lot of people kind of gripe saying, oh, this should be all hide behind hills and do all this other stuff, but that's not how the UNSC builds vehicles. Look at the Warthog. The Warthog could have a lot less clearance than it does. You know, the Scorpion tank has a turret designed so that it can actually peek the turret over hills specifically for that purpose and stuff. So this fits. It works. I actually don't mind the height. I actually think it's very appropriate. Then we've got some images where everything's in the the 3D editor here, and everything's colored out in various ways, and selected and broken up into different parts. And then you get the next picture where everything's selected, and you get to see all the faces of the tank and the turret and all that various other stuff. We're going to skip that because there's really nothing to say about that, but we've got some non-textured things here inside, probably Substance Painter it looks like. It's hard to tell for me. But we've got interior shots here of the actual model. It looks a lot better when it's not a 3D editor. It's like in Substance Painter. Like I said, I think it's Substance Painter. But, yeah, all non-textured stuff. Gives you a pretty good idea of what it's actually going to look like in-game. And here we see a texture. Now, I like this texture for the infantry compartment, but where the crew's sitting, in this driver cabin and stuff, it just does not mesh well in most cases. Like the floor, it works okay. The ceiling is okay, I guess, but I have a few gripes with it. One is that these don't really line up well with each other in pretty much any instance. I don't like it in here. It's plain and simple. Something more plain might have actually been a little bit more suitable in this. I mean, obviously you don't want to go so plain that there's nothing to look at on the interior, but this just doesn't look right. Now, with that being said, you go back in this next image, depending on how this scrolls through, you can see that these don't line up right. But, we go through to the crew compartment, and it looks fantastic, which is kind of weird. Because it's so reminiscent of the Pelican's troop compartment, which was actually what Zephyr Sosa was going for. And it looks just great. It works really well here in the back. It actually, part of the reason for that too probably being that one, the bay is longer, but also because it actually meshes a little bit better. It lines up better than it does in the crew the crew cabin, crew compartment. Just because, like, the way the crew compartment gets, there's a lot of stuff that's not lined up properly because it's asymmetric, unlike the back, which is symmetrical. Moving on, we've got the exterior textures of the vehicle. The first one we have is the ramp for the infantry compartment. You get to see some of the green, but the big piece here on this bottom of the ramp is the UNSC logo, so that'll be smack dab right in the back of it. As a nice big target. Shoot here, shoot this logo to kill all the infantry inside if you're Covenant or an innie. So then we've got a side exterior shot, and this one's pretty cool looking. This is in Substance Painter for sure. As you can see, there's a lot of wear and tear and dirt on this vehicle. You can see a lot of detail they've put in. So like where the wheels are at, the tires, you can see they've, brought mud that they've picked up off the ground and shot it up into the bottom of the bison. You got some wear and tear going on at the parts where it angles up and stuff like that. The tires are dirty. There's a little bit of dirt on the turret and all this stuff. I'm always kind of a little bit mix and match about this because obviously, I was in a fire department for a little while, and we were very, very, very tedious when it came to cleaning the vehicles. You always clean the vehicles after a call. You spray down the vehicles at least once a month when you're doing your big checks. You're making sure to wash the vehicles down, but usually it's pretty much like every week you're doing washing the vehicles and stuff to make sure everything's clean. To make sure that it's kept in prime condition, just because that actually is an important part of keeping everything not only good looking, but also operating optimally. But with this, you get it. You're out in the war environment. Stuff gets dirty. You don't have, if you're in the middle of a battle or something, or you're in the middle of a war, you're not going to have a chance to sit there and scrub out all the dirt from every little nook and cranny of a vehicle, and stuff gets worn down over time. It happens. But my issue with that comes from, it's like if you're playing in a scenario where, hey, this is a new unit or something, or these are guys who are defending a base, who sit on this base all the time, and they've got vehicles and stuff. So I just kind of wish it could be that thing, and I understand some games can do this, some can't, and that's a limitation of the game usually, is that over time a vehicle becomes dirtier and stuff, but not necessarily immediately. Unfortunately, most games, I don't think really any game has technology that's quite gotten there yet. Racing games are probably the closest. GTA, you see that a little bit with the vehicles getting dirty and stuff, but that's still pretty fast when that happens. Although with GTA 5, it's probably a lot more detailed than a lot of other games. Arma really doesn't do that. I don't know if it can. You can set up a map to get it dirtier over time or over in certain environments. I think you can, but I'm not sure how it works. I'm not going to say the devs have to do that because I don't know how difficult that would be, if it's possible at all. So I'm going to break the mold a little bit here. Normally I always say first contact for the end. We've got some first contact stuff, not a lot, but a little bit that I want to show you guys. And just to try and keep everything lined up correctly, we're going to get into that next and then keep going. So we've just got some stuff to show with the elites. Now, we've known that the elites were getting redone for a while. We haven't actually seen them, though. Some time back, Drake Daron had actually posted, somebody was asking about the elites and asking about their armor and stuff. He actually posted an image of the elites and stuff. So we've got a few different things. This initial image is, a basic elite in a T-pose. As you can see, the model is significantly more detailed than the previous versions. From this, it's kind of hard to tell if the mesh bugs or polygon bugs or whatever it was that was causing the clipping of the model seems to have been fixed. It's hard to tell from this, but it looks like everything's been touched up and should be good to go once it's in game. Definitely a lot better looking, and I think that with this update, we'll probably start seeing Covenant added to actual missions and stuff with a lot of people, because that's the big thing is elites are just so bad looking. Even if they were not combat effective, just because they're so bad looking, that's what keeps them out of a lot of people's missions, because of all the bugs and issues with them. The next shot is an up close shot of the elite's head, so you can see the helmet's significantly more detailed, so much so that where the mandible armor is, you can see the hinges so that it can move up and down and in and out. all sorts of detail in here. Just it looks very cool. Very excited for this, but the next picture is my favorite because we get to see the elites textured, and we get to see the different variations. Plus, one other thing that you guys might have already noticed is we're now on the image. So, looking at the top left corner, we'll go around real quick, but there's not a whole lot to cover in most of this. The top left image is the elite miner, but if you notice there's something on his back, you can see in the bottom left a lot better. He's got a jetpack on. This is the Ranger jetpack from Halo 2, and I believe 3 might have had it too. I can't remember for sure. But for sure Halo 2. So that's going to be very awesome. I don't know how this will work. In Halo, these Ranger jetpacks seem to have infinite thrust capability, and they're a lot more maneuverable than the UNSC jump packs, which, you know, you look at the Bullfrogs, and, you know, they jump from, you know, one platform to the next. Obviously, the UNSC jetpacks did not have huge amounts of maneuvering room or capability to stay in the air forever. You know, they were reliable enough that these guys felt relatively safe jumping from, you know, skyscraper to skyscraper with these jetpacks over short distances. But, you know, you look at the Rangers, they're gliding all through the air and stuff whenever you run across a guy with a jetpack. So I don't know if this will operate similar to the UNSC jetpack or if they're going to do their own thing with it and make it just totally unique so that it actually operates like we see in the Halo games. So let's cover the different classes of units and talk a little bit more about those. So we've got the Elite Miner. Obviously, it's all these Elite models on the under the armor is the same, and the armor is all the same itself. But, you know, these are the standard blue Elites. You know, same with the Elite Major, Ultra, and Zealot. Those are all just the standard armor. So it's the same armor. The under gray texture is all the same between the units. The black is the same. The only thing that really changes between these units is the color of the primary armor color. And the armor looks pretty glossy. It's kind of hard to tell far out on these images, but there's definitely like a metal shine to it. Makes it slightly iridescent, which is how it should look with the Covenant, to be perfectly frank. And then we've got a purple ship commander. So the purple ship commander isn't a lore thing. This is actually created by Drake Darren because he wanted to have purple elites. But you know what? I'm not going to hold that against him because that's like giving Mace Windu a purple lightsaber. You just accept it. You know, it's like, okay, you know, I've never seen a purple lightsaber before, but hey, I can go with a purple lightsaber. That's fine. You know, the Covenant uses purple in a lot of their colors. It's not unreasonable to assume that the elites would too use purple for their colors. Just like the ships, you know, the Wraith tanks, the ghosts, everything uses purple armor, and that's the same purple that those use in most instances. His head even looked kind of like a ghost or a banshee, you know, a little bit. Like if you just kind of cut out the gray, like cover up the gray on his head while you're watching this video, you know, you almost think that you're looking at a banshee, you know? It's actually kind of funny. So then there is one last thing to talk about the elites. I don't have an image for this, but Drake has basically said he will be working on some more helmets for the elites. Not a huge amount more because it's a lot more work, and he's got other higher priorities too. But he's looking into doing, you know, like the Counselor helmets, the Honor Guard helmets. So that'll be very cool. I'd love to see the Honor Guard in Arma 3. The Counselors, you know, they've got cool helmets, so if they're added, great. You know, if not, it's not a huge skin off my back because they're not really combat units. It could make for some interesting scenarios, you know, like, we've got elite council members that are being transported to this planet or whatever, you know, killing these VIPs of the Covenant would be, you know, a great blow for the UNSC or something. I don't know. But like I said, we're not done yet. We got to go into a little bit more here. So we've got some map stuff here to cover, and then we're just about done. So the first thing here is these are all map assets, like I said, but most of the stuff is structures. So this first structure is textured. It's clearly in game, but this is actually the early version of it. You guys will see, you know, non-texture and texture versions of this that have been updated. Now, I didn't like this version when I first saw it, because it doesn't look realistic. You know, this looks like something you might see on Hang 'em High, or like a Halo 1 Forerunner structure or something. it just doesn't feel realistic for a human UNSC, CMA structure that you'd expect to see. There's no guardrails. There's nothing to protect it. That's just not how we build stuff. These are very open structures and stuff. That gets fixed and changed later on. So, don't dwell too much on this. Obviously the texture was a little bit poorly detailed. In my own personal opinion, it was kind of blurry and stuff. But they've improved upon it greatly. So going to the next image, we've got the untextured version of the updates for this. So you can see on the top that they've got, one of the locked doors up there added onto the structure. Now, I think that door is probably separate because this is in Arma again with this non-textured version. They have, the individual doors that you're able to just place on a structure. So I don't know if on the standard model if that door is still open or not. And you can't really tell on this because a lot of the detail is lost because it's not textured. But that walkway up and down has actually been changed significantly. They've put in guardrails up. It actually extends the whole length of the structure. So it actually goes, instead of, going down on the side of the building and then wrapping around to go down further like a walkway that's pretty much straight at the bottom. Instead, at the top of the structure, the walkway straight. It goes the whole length of the structure, turns around, ramps down the whole length of the structure, and then you're like level with the bottom. But bear in mind, guys, this is the same structure. And you guys will see that with more updates. So this next image, we've got a lot more parts. And this is all in Arma once again. This is actually on their new map, which you guys will get to see a little bit more of before we finish. But you can see the structure on the left here. You can see the ramp does still go slightly down on the side of the building, but there's guardrails the whole way. It goes straight along the length of the building, goes down, and then wraps around to the base here, to the lower level that you go into. In this picture, too, there is also no door, so I'm assuming that's just how the structure is supposed to be normally. Looking at these other items, it's all basically just walls. These are all designed to be like seawalls, for waterways and stuff. You can see... the ramp closest to the mill bottom has pipes going through it. On the right side of that wall, that structure's got like a walkway in the center, but that's also got pipes going down into the water. And you can tell just looking at these other walls, they're all designed to link up with these. They're all designed to be kind of interchangeable to an extent, so you can design your own walls as you need them to be. Speaking of the big structure with pipes coming down from it, here's another shot closer up of that one. As you can see, these are very large. It's kind of hard to tell when you're looking at the walkways and stuff, but there's a warthog in this picture for scale. The warthog's on top of this structure, and there's still room for, I don't know if I'd want two warthogs side by side, but you could probably do it relatively safely. I wouldn't advise it, but you could if you needed to in a pinch. And then we've got the same structure alongside a couple of those other pieces. Again, this time the warthog's been moved up inside the tunnel. So you can see the tunnel's big enough to fit one warthog. Probably two side by side, but they'd probably get stuck on each other, wouldn't be able to fit too well. So it's pretty sizable. This picture, this is what makes it feel truly big. So this is the same structure, and you can tell how truly massive it is. That warthog is tiny when it comes to like putting on the bottom, like the top width-wise. It's not much bigger than a warthog. Maybe two warthogs at certain points, but from the base, this thing dwarfs a warthog. The warthog's so tiny compared to these walls. These are going to be very big structures. These are going to be some defensible points. I don't know if you'd want to attack somebody who's, up here on top of these walls or something, or who's held up around these structures, but if you had to, it wouldn't be a fun fight, but it would be an interesting one for sure. Here we've got another shot of all the walls put together. You can see the corner piece, and you've got another straight wall coming off of it. And then you've got the pipes coming down, but in this one, the pipes are actually lined to sync up to, the ramps and the pipes that go through them. So it's a pretty cool combination they've got going on here. So it looks like these pipes are feeding into the pipes going up the wall, or vice versa. The pipes on the walls feeding down into the ones going into the water. You've got warthog going over it. So I lost my spot here for a second. Here we get to start looking at the map a little bit. This is a little bit better of a sneak peek. We've also got, the pipes and ramps on the beach. Very reminiscent of the Halo 2 mission for, I don't think it was Metropolis. I think maybe it was Metropolis. I can't remember if it was Metropolis or mission beforehand. When you're going to the beach, it's actually based off the ramps from that scene, or that level. Here, I think this is another shot of the map, although I'm not so clear on this one. You've got a couple of walkways jutting out. You've got struts coming down from the walkways, and that's the big center focus of this. Obviously, the Pelican landing pads or the landing pads have already existed in version 0.14 and stuff. The walkway existed in 0.14. The struts coming down on the rocks and the ones going down into the water onto that pad are what already existed. Or didn't exist. That's the new part. Sorry, guys. I don't know why I said already existed. So it's just a little bit more set decoration to make it feel a little bit more realistic. Because obviously, you're not going to have a walkway where you're landing Pelicans and major, fighters and ships or whatever onto these pads and not going to have any, support for those vehicles. Because that would just, little bridge isn't going to hold up a Pelican. This point it's jutting out over into the water like that. So now we start moving into the map. I don't know if this is Iberus or however it's pronounced, because they had one map they released that had a similar name to it. Looking at this, though, this is going to be a very large map, very centric on water. A lot of the focuses on the shots here have a lot of water in them, and that should be obvious by the fact that they showed off so many water-based walls and stuff and assets with this. This doesn't look like it'd be an enjoyable beach to assault, but it would be kind of interesting to see some water assaults. It looks like if you look further up the beach, it could just be that the draw distance isn't far enough for this, but the rocks seem to cut out further down the beach. Obviously, you're not going to be climbing these rocks here in Arma, but, I'm assuming there's probably a couple, points where there's, like, beachheads and stuff. Now, I think this would be a great opportunity with 0.16, or if they have time, 0.15, depending on when the release will be, to take some of Halo 1's, Halo 2's concept art where they have boats in there. Halo had concept art for boats, and they were going to have water levels, and it just never made the cut. To take some of that concept art, change it so it feels a little bit more in line with other UNSC technology, and throw that in, because I think that would be fantastic to see that. Obviously, the mod's got a long way to go with content that actually exists, but they haven't shied away from making their own content if it fits properly and if it truly adds some depth or something truly needed to the mod. The Bison's a prime example of that. The game really needed an IFV, something a little bit heavier than a Warthog to transport soldiers around that's not a Pelican, that's not going to be prone to anti-air and stuff. So the Bison really fits into that role that needed to be filled. Obviously, now we need heavy armor, so you can go to sources like the Scorpion, which is already being developed, or something else. But when you look at boats aren't necessarily immediately needed just because there is boats in the game. They're kind of sci-fi looking and stuff, and a lot of people don't do water assaults. But I think if the devs wanted to look at something down the line, that could be something they could do. It would be cool to see. We're going to stop talking for a second, or at least I will, so we can move on. We've got another shot of like a creek inlet going down to some like inlet pipes and like a tiered pier in the background. And what appears to be on the upper levels, those seawalls, I can't really tell for sure, just because obviously how the image is cropped. Pretty cool looking image though, if I do say so. I really like this map so far from what I've seen of it, what little I have seen. Now we've got an up-close shot of those inlet pipes. You can see there's a little dock at the bottom with stairways and ladders that go up to the upper level so you can get up on top of that wall. So that would be good, for kind of like a sneaking in entrance or something like that, like, oh, there's a base up here. I don't know what's up on top there. Maybe you can't fit a base, but maybe you can. Maybe there's a base and stuff, or some sort of like private factory that you need to like infiltrate because they're supporting innies, or maybe you are an innie trying to stop UNSC production. It could be a pretty interesting aspect. And then we come to our final image. This one is an interesting image. This is a very large area that's been cut out. As you can see, there's a lot of rolling hills in the background, a lot of room. And then this seems to be at some sort of like lake or water inlet. You can't really tell what's tapping into the water on the left because it's cut off by the ground, but on the right hand side it does appear to go out somewhere else. Obviously there's a hill here across from this water, presumably there's beach, but this walled off section makes it appear like there will be either a city or a very large military base. There's some stuff already inside the wall and off to the left of the wall, but I can't really make out what that is, and unfortunately a lot of the details lost there to probably would show whether or not it's a civilian city or a military base that will be placed here. But you can see there's water, the piped ramps or whatever you want to call them. 3 of them going back that look like they're designed to be like a water break or something here, or are being used to suck up the water. Pretty cool looking area. Maybe this is some kind of like factory too, even, where you've got, ships coming in and out of here to drop off supplies, although the water looks a little too shallow for that. Definitely an interesting design. I like what the map makers are doing with these maps. At any rate, guys, this is everything I have to talk about. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I guess I'll see you guys for the next video. Expect a Stargate one coming probably soon after this, because the Stargate mods already had some updates to it. Some actual gameplay stuff that I can get my hands on, but I'm actually waiting to try Jack O'Neill's mission that he's been developing for it, because he's got some scripting stuff in there, and it's got a lot of stuff that it still needs, but it's starting to take some true shape with it. At any rate, guys, take it easy. I'll see you for the next video. Oh, and if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and if you're old, make sure to like the video too, because it always helps out. Alright, guys, take it easy. I'll see you around.